So let's go back to let's take a look at the Tarrasch Defense. So that was d4, d5, c4, e6, knight to c3, and boom, c5, the Tarrasch Defense. And c5 is what? Looks like the fourth most popular move. Yep. This was regarded as the only correct move by Siegbert Tarrasch, born in 1862 and died in 1934. So he was what? 38 plus 34? 72. One of the world's best players in his day. An extremely influential theoretician. His basic assertion was that white cannot very well take on d5. White can't take on d5. Why not? Because that would give black the advantage of an isolated d pawn after c takes, then e takes. Let's see. So c takes. So c takes. Oh, let's go back. White cannot very well take on d5. So I do take on d5. Because that would give black the advantage of an isolated d pawn. Oh, if black takes, e takes d5. No? Let me see. After c takes d5, oh, that's what it is. E takes d5. That's the advantage he's saying. But then after either these capture, so I could capture immediately, white takes c5, bishop, it's the advantage of the isolated pawn. Isolated d pawn. Okay. Tarrasch valued open lines and freedom of movement for his pieces so highly that he considered it irresponsible for white to play like this and judged for e3 to be the best move. So here, e3. For e3 to be the best move, whereupon it was of course black's turn to avoid making the same mistake by taking on d4. His view of the situation was that both players should wait for a favorable opportunity to break the tension in the center. Since then, the evaluation of the isolated queen's pawn has changed considerably. Pawns may become weak, especially when they are isolated. The judging of these positions could be said to have become a very personal affair, and it is only natural that some famous grandmasters have often and successfully used the Tarrasch defense. For example, Spassky and Kasparov, while others have never even tried it. Okay, so let's go back. So 4, we'll do, c takes d5, but before we do that, 4e3 is hardly ever played nowadays. Yet some positions So 4e3 is hardly ever played nowadays, yet some positions resulting from this move are still relevant because they may also arise from very different openings. The position after 4 knight f6, knight f3, and the knight c6, for instance, is often reached via the symmetrical English. Let's see. So if I play, so if white plays e3 and then knight f6, knight f3, knight c6. So assuming we're keeping all the tension in the center and all 4 knights are being developed, what is this one called? This is called the Tarrasch Defense symmetrical variation. Okay, So this opening can be reached by a different, but it can be often be reached via the symmetrical English. All right, let's see. So we do C4. Oh, sorry, symmetrical. Symmetrical would be, start with a knight move. All right. Knight F3. Knight F6. The ready opening. C4. Now it changed to the English opening, the Anglo-Indian King's Knight variation. Okay. C5. Symmetrical variation. Knight C3. Knight C6. E3. E6. D4. D5. The same position. White then usually takes on D5 anyway, but the subtle waiting move A3 is popular as well. So here, yeah, looks like A3 is number one move, and also C takes D5. Yep. A couple other moves. Yep. So A3 is also popular. When black often adopts the same strategy by playing A6. Okay. Yeah, that is the most popular move. Talk about symmetrical. In this position, white has other useful waiting moves in 7b3 in the best tradition of Tarrasch. This is also a good moment for releasing the tension and developing the queenside. So one option is b3, which I think is the fourth most popular move. All book though. But it's recommending here, let's see, that you could just do d takes c5. Bishop takes c5. b4. Followed by bishop b2. Yeah. That's one way to do it here. What's the analysis on this? So it'd be d4, or via the English, but let's do the regular. So d4, d5, c4, e6. I don't like that. This is the analysis. Let's see. Here we go. All right, make moves. d4, d5, c4, e6. Knight c3, and then c5. e3. Develop the knights. a3. a6. And instead of going b3, white could do d takes c5, bishop takes c5, and b4. So bishop a7 or bishop e7 or even bishop d6. Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, looks like about almost 0.27, 0.28, 0.29. So about an equal game there as from the opening. White has a slight advantage, same thing like the first move advantage. It hasn't really changed much. Interesting, okay. All right, so go back to the main moves. All All right, d4. d5. c4. e6. Knight c3. c5 with the Tarrasch Defense. So it's saying e3 is hardly ever played nowadays, so we got through that. Let's take a look at the main line, which would be c takes at d5. And then e takes d5. This recapture seems natural, yet black has the option of trying to grab the initiative by sacrificing the pawn with c takes d4. Okay, let's take a look. Looks like they're played about move one. Yep, is e takes. Oh, it's called the Scara Gambit. The Scara Gambit. Okay, let's see how that looks. This is called the Scara Hennig Gambit, and its main line runs queen takes d4. There's actually another move that people play is queen a5, queen a4 check. Okay. The main line is queen takes d4, and then knight c6. I suspect being able to play this beautiful move is all the justification that quite a number of Scara Hennig fans need. Okay, queen d1, e takes d5, queen takes d5, bishop d7, knight f3, knight f6, queen back to d1, bishop c5, e3, queen e7, bishop e2, castle queenside, castle kingside, g5. There's a sharp middle game ahead, which offers rather more scope for short-term tactical calculations than for considerations of a positional nature. That's interesting. So let's see what this position is. Let's do the analysis. All right, d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, c5, c takes d5, c takes d4. We're going to do queen takes d4, knight to c6. Queen d1, captures, queen captures, bishop d7, knight f3, knight f6, queen back to d1, bishop c5, e3, queen to e7, bishop e2, castle queenside, castle kingside, g5. So this looks like it almost has a full point for white. It likes white a lot. I don't like how white's not really developed. I guess it is up a pawn, and this would be up 2 pawns, but it's definitely not recommended to take that pawn. It's recommended either a3, queen to c2. So this line would be a3, queen to c2, or potentially bishop to d2. Yeah, because there's no really good discoveries, I guess, with the bishop coming out. with the rook attacking the queen. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. The Tarrasch Defense, the Skara Gambit. I like it for black. I mean, yeah, it's maybe a little bit better for white here, but the potential for attack here is interesting. Maybe try it in a blitz game, maybe even in a long game at the lower levels. I mean, gambits work perfectly fine. So this is another gambit, the Skahara Gambit. And that's assuming people know that the Tarrasch. Interesting. Okay. All right, let's go back. Opening. And instead of the gambit, E takes, yep. E takes D5. Okay, Tarrasch Defense. So let's continue. Knight F3. Yep. Knight C6. Oh, this is called the two knights variation. Knight C6. Still called the two knights variation. Didn't change the three knights or anything. And then G3. Decades of practical experience have turned this into the main line of the Tarrasch Defense. Okay. There used to be E3, Knight F6, is not unimportant, but is usually reached via other openings. Interesting. So this one, yeah, it says English opening, the Agincourt in defense. The Agincourt. A white standard continuations are bishop e2 and bishop b5. Makes sense. These variations are not as sharp or as deeply worked out as the ones arising from 6g3, though. Okay. Good to know. G3. All right, and so the next main line is Knight F6. However, so the Knight F6 would be the two knights Rubinstein-Prague variation. But there's C4, which is the two knights Rubinstein Swedish variation. So Prague and Swedish. Oh, and then also C takes D4 is the Schlechter variation. Schlechter. Interesting. Okay. The provocative move C4 which gives the game a totally different face, is an important and interesting alternative. This is called the Swedish variation. Black takes a somewhat intimidating step forward on the queen side and tries to cramp his opponent's position. White has two standard strategies at his disposal to try to break up black's pawn formation. B3, okay, and even more forceful, a well-timed E4. And play is likely to revolve around either of these. Okay. After bishop g2, bishop b4, castle kingside, knight on g to e7. The thrust e4 is actually already possible. For white regains his pawn after, all right, bishop takes c3, b takes c3, pawn takes e4, and then knight to d2. Interesting. Okay. So let's go back to the, instead of c4. So after g3, instead of c4, which is the Swedish variation, we'll go ahead and go with knight f6. Okay, two knights variation, knight f6, bishop g2, bishop e7, castle, and castle. So this position here, This is the most important starting position of the Tarrasch defense. No other opening offers black such free and easy development for his pieces. One might easily be led to believe that it was actually black who started the game. In fact, white's only chance lies in putting pressure on black's D pawn. But although this is white's only option, it is also a very dangerous one, especially in the hands of a skilled positional player. So it would be wrong to assume that everything is going black's way in this position. Whether one prefers white or black is, at least to a certain extent, a matter of taste. A large number of moves have grown into major variations here. Major variations. All right, so it sounds like the three variations here would be bishop e3, bishop f4, and b3. And even the, at first sight, rather unimpressive a3 are not bad. Yet the main lines are d takes c5, bishop takes c5, and then bishop g5. Or the other one is, instead of capturing, immediately bishop g5. After the latter move, black has a choice of either bishop e6, c4, and c takes d4. Now knight takes d4. Oh, wait, c takes d4. Let's go back. Black has a choice of either bishop e6, 9, c4, or c takes d4. Looks like most popular, yep, is c takes d4. It's the Tarrasch Defense, two knights, Rubinstein, Prague, Carlsbad variation. Wow. c4 would be the advanced variation. Okay. Bishop e6 would be the Prague Carlsbad endgame variation. Interesting. Those are the top three. Each have their own names. Huh. So the latter move, black has a choice. Let's do the c takes d4 here. Knight takes d4, and then h6. Some of these lines have been analyzed deep into the endgame, but this should not be as alarming as it sounds, since the play is of very logical nature here, which makes the variations fairly easy to understand. All right, great. That was the Tarrasch. Well, thank you very much for this session. Have a great day.